Thanks, everybody. This is Louise. Peter, we can go on to the next slide, please. So this is our agenda for the next hour. We've got a lot of content, so we're going to be moving, I think, pretty fast. We'll talk about what's going on at the county assistance offices. We'll talk about what's changes to medical assistance, SNAP, TANF, Liheap, hearings and appeals, WIC, and then the welfare to work programs, the SNAP, able-bodied adults without dependents, and the stimulus payments. So a lot to cover. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the current status at the county assistance offices, I think people here know that the county assistance offices are closed to the public. They have been for weeks now. But the workers are doing the work, which is fantastic. I think they're really unsung heroes. They're doing it in staggered shifts. So only half of the workers are there at a time. And of course, some workers can't make it at all, what with illness or quarantine or childcare issues. So there's less than half the staff doing the work. And of course, the volume of work has gone up with new applications. The way people can communicate with the county assistance offices, the best way to apply is online at the compass.state.pa.us. In order for the applications to be processed as quickly as possible, we're urging people to submit a complete application if possible. And especially there's a comment box on the Compass page, and people should be using that to say, I lost my job. There is a question on Compass, if you lost your job or have reduced your hours, answer that question, because that'll be an important one for expediting the application. There's also paper applications that can be had. Next slide, please. And if people don't have access to computers, they can drop off the paper applications at the county assistance offices, which do have drop boxes, although the drop boxes may only be available during business hours. And then people should be reporting changes, like if they've been getting SNAP and they have lost their job, they should be reporting the loss of income to the CAOs so that their SNAP benefits can be increased. And they can do that through that Compass link, the mobile app, My Compass PA, or by calling the customer service centers. And these are their numbers. There's one for Philadelphia and one for the rest of the state. Next slide, please. And Benefits Data Trust, which is a nonprofit based here in Philadelphia, is helping people with applications. So if you've got clients who don't have access to Compass because they don't have computer access, they can call BDT at these two numbers, one for Philadelphia and one for the rest of the state. And BDT will submit the application for them through Compass for any of the benefits we're talking about. Also the property tax and rent rebate, so I guess it's PTRR. And in Philadelphia, they help people apply for other benefits, and they will get an interpreter. Next slide. And we're moving on to Peter.
Hi, everybody. Hope everyone is safe and healthy. We're going to talk about medical assistance, and we're going to cover protections for people who are currently receiving medical assistance, but also very importantly, potential coverage for folks who may be eligible, and this would include many people out there who have lost their jobs and lost their health care with it. So for those who are currently receiving medical assistance, there will be no termination of benefits for anyone, so long as they were receiving medical assistance as of March 18th of this year. DHS is going to continue to send renewals to folks. They're encouraging people to complete the renewals if they're able to do that. But importantly, those who don't complete their renewals or who are unable to complete their renewals will not have their cases closed. During this period of the COVID-19 crisis, DHS is accepting self-attestation. So if clients have verification, they should submit it in the ways that Louise talked about previously. But if they don't, DHS will accept their own statement as proof of pretty much any factor of eligibility that would normally come up in the renewal context. Changes can be reported, I think Louise covered this already, but through Compass or the mobile app, or by calling the customer service centers at these numbers that you see here. We think that a lot of people who were affected by the COVID crisis may be eligible for medical assistance. And here we're talking about folks who have lost their jobs and with it have lost their employer provided health insurance. So one very important, a lot of those people are going to be applying for unemployment compensation, which, as I understand it, not an expert in this area, but I think UC benefits are typically about 40% of wages. So that means that folks' income is going to drop pretty significantly, which may make them eligible for CHIP or MA. But as you know, through the CARES Act, people are going to, who receive unemployment comp will be receiving a boost, a $600 a week boost from the federal government at some point, not clear when that's going to happen. That would put a lot of people over the income limit probably, except that the CARES Act provides that additional $600 is not to be counted as income for medical assistance or CHIP. The regular state-funded UC does count as income, but as I said, in many cases, that probably won't make people ineligible for benefits. Expedited processing of applications is available for those who have urgent medical needs or who are infected by the COVID-19 virus, and that should note those things in the comment box in the application. A few tips for completing the application: explain any problems in providing documents in the comments box, and make sure the application is as complete as possible. In the comment box, people should be including important information like recent change in jobs, reductions in income, changes in hours, etc. And Louise, I think we're back to you for SNAP benefits.
Okay. Again, I know that we're going through this really fast. We're going to stop for questions during that first poll that Kelly talked about. So I think most of you all know about SNAP benefits that are almost all low-income people are eligible for. When people are applying, they apply as a household. That's people who live together and purchase and prepare food together, which means, with the exception that spouses who live in the same household, even if they purchase and prepare food separately, and people under the age of 22 who live with their parents have to be on the same parent's household, even if they eat separately. Next slide. So the income limit for SNAP is relatively high in our world. It's 160% of poverty, or 200% if somebody in the household is elderly, which means 60 or over, or disabled, which means receiving a disability benefit. And there is no asset test for SNAP. Savings are irrelevant. I know that especially outside of Philadelphia, there's a lot of folks who are reluctant to apply for SNAP and especially reluctant to tell the government about their assets. So what we've been, assets are irrelevant, but they do need to know for screening for expedited service, which I'm going to cover in a second. So we've been recommending people just put in, $1,000 or $2,000 in the resource box, and then just sort of say in the comments, I have more than this, if that's true, and I'm not eligible for expedited service. You don't want to lie, but you don't need to tell them exactly what your assets are. Next slide. So this is the maximum amount that people can get on SNAP. It varies with your household size and your income, but also certain expenses, especially housing expenses. Next slide. So I mentioned there's this thing called Expedited Snap. So for people who are with very low income and resources can get their first month SNAP right away, meaning in less than 5 calendar days, if they are, if their monthly income plus their cash on hand is less than their rent plus $594 for utilities. And DHS's computer does the math there and issues Expedited SNAP for people who are eligible. And the reason how they're able to issue the first month SNAP so fast is they need no verification for that except for identity. And generally they can check identity electronically if you've ever gotten benefits in the past, or they can check it through a data match with Social Security. But if you get Expedited SNAP, that's only your first month's benefits. You're not going to get your second and future month's benefits unless you complete the process. Normally that involves an interview. Currently, DHS has a waiver from the federal government to skip the interview during the COVID-19 crisis, but they are going to need verification. Next slide. So this is current flexibilities. They, as I say, they're skipping the interview, but DHS may still be calling people because if the application isn't clear, they need to understand the household circumstances. People do not need to verify loss of income or loss of a job. They will accept people's self-attestation. And if people are having trouble getting other verification that might be requested, then DHS is supposed to help them or accept a self-attestation. But they're going to need to know if you can't get the verification that is requested, other than this loss of an income or loss of a job, which they know that they don't need to even try to get that. That can be self-attested. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. The final thing I want to mention about SNAP is that Congress, in the second of their coronavirus response laws, approved giving the maximum amount of SNAP to all SNAP households for 2 months. This is a weird rule the way the federal government is interpreting it. I think we all thought that this was going to be an extra allotment for everybody of the maximum amount. Instead, the federal government is viewing it as bringing all households up to the maximum for 2 months. So households already receiving maximum SNAP will not get any more. So this is helping not the poorest of the poor, but the less poor of the poor will get extra help. And what this means is Pennsylvania is going to be issuing an extra allotment in the second half of April, an extra allotment, which will be the difference between how much people got in March and April and the maximum benefit. And that will appear on people's cards on April 16th to 29th using the Tanf payment schedule. So it'll be staggered depending on the last date of your or the last digit of your record number. Next slide. We're back to Peter.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Tanf program, and again, we do this from the perspective of those protections, talk about protections for those who are currently on Tanf, but also talk about Tanf as a potential resource for folks who have lost their jobs. And here, we may be looking at people who, for example, don't qualify for unemployment comp or who are waiting for their unemployment comp benefits to start. There are a bunch of categories of people who aren't normally eligible for unemployment, like those without sufficient earnings records and self-employed and so forth, who will be eligible for those benefits under the special UC program created by the CARES Act. However, it's not clear when those benefits are going to start. So TANF may be an important resource for folks who are waiting for those benefits or who aren't eligible for them. So the important thing here, I think, is what you're going to see in these slides are things that most of you already know, but what we're trying to do is highlight information that will be important to pass on to people who are potentially eligible. So, of course, parents, others caring for relatives who have lost their jobs, who have very few, don't have assets, may be eligible for TANF. Those folks are going to need to know that TANF provides a cash assistance benefit to families with children living with them, and as well to pregnant women. The kids have to be related by blood, adoption, or marriage. Parents and children have to be on the grant together unless someone in the household is receiving SSI. Relatives, particularly, we see this a lot with grandparents, can get TANF for their kids. They can either be on the grant or not on the grant themselves, depending on their income. If they choose to not be on the grant, then their income doesn't count in determining eligibility for the kids. These are the monthly grant amounts, which sadly we are all aware of, but again, this is information to pass on to people who may be interested in applying. They're going to want to know how much they can get. Income limits for TANF are generally the same as the grant amounts. Main reason for that is that the earned income disregard does not apply to applicants. But people should know that some amount of child support is disregarded. So if there's a child support order in effect, the family may still be eligible for TANF. Family member who's receiving SSI is not on the grant and their income doesn't count. There is an asset limit for TANF. It's $1,000. People who have lost their jobs and who have savings in excess of $1,000 may be burning through that money pretty quickly. So they should be informed that once their resources are spent down to under $1,000, they may be eligible. For families who are currently receiving TANF, we have a very weird arrangement here. I know that CLS has been working on this with DHS. This scheme doesn't really make any sense, but here it is. So if you are receiving TANF, you will be sent a renewal or a SAR packet when you become due for renewal. If you don't submit the renewal or the SAR, you won't be cut off. However, if you do submit the renewal or SAR, you have to do the interview or you may be cut off. This is a strange arrangement, and it's not really clear that people will know that if they receive the renewal packet, they don't have to complete it or send it in. So it's probably likely that many people will send the renewal in, and there are all kinds of problems that could arise with phone access and things like that with their caseworkers. So this is something that we all need to be alerted to. Importantly, families will not be sanctioned if the parent can't participate in employment and training activities. There's a little more to know about this, which we'll get into a bit later in the presentation. The diversion program, Louise is going to talk about, and this may be an important option for folks.
While we're switching between the two of you, if I could just launch the poll, attorneys wishing to receive CLE credit for participation on this webinar. This is the first of the two polls we will ask. You should have a pop-up box on your screen. Just please answer yes or no. And in the meantime, we have a few questions already. Does BDD help in all PA counties?
It's Benefits Data Trust. And yes, they are currently helping in all PA counties. They have those two different numbers for Philadelphia and the rest of the state. Okay, but does BDT help all applications all the time or just during the COVID-19 crisis? They just started doing it statewide because of the COVID-19 crisis, and I don't know if they've decided. I think generally their model is they get paid by a government entity to do the work, and I don't know if anybody is paying them for this, whether this is a let's try it out and then make a pitch to the state. We'll see.
Okay. Will folks waiting for UC have to repay TANF or diversion when UC gets paid?
We think not. DHS said we'll have people do reimbursement agreements, but as we've been looking into it, we have not seen that they have a current structure that involves reimbursement agreements. We're still talking with DHS about diversion, as I'll discuss in a second.
Okay. Will people get the SNAP emergency allotment if they were receiving SNAP in either March or April, or if they received SNAP but not in March or April?
You have to, what the emergency allotment is it's putting people who received SNAP in March or April up to the maximum benefit for March and April. So yeah, you had to have been receiving SNAP in March and April.
And the last question for now, would parents be able to include college children to their SNAP household if they had returned home for the quarantine?
This is something that DHS has asked the federal government for permission to do and has not heard back yet. The reason why this is an issue is that generally full-time college students are not eligible for SNAP unless they're working 20 hours a week or disabled or have children, and there's some exceptions. DHS does not currently have permission to waive the student rules, but is trying.
Okay, those are all the questions and the polling is done, so feel free to go on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can't see the slide. The diversion, can I get rid of that? Or thank you.
Yeah, if you, yeah.
The diversion
Sorry,
program is a long-standing option in the Tanf program. It's been around for 15 years, where people with work histories who have temporary needs for cash could, instead of going on TANF on an ongoing basis, get up to 3 months of TANF in a lump sum without going on ongoing TANF, if they've got a plan for how they're going to support themselves within a few months. So typically this has been useful, say, for school district employees who are laid off in the summer, might be able to get a diversion grant for the summer. People who have a job that's scheduled to start in 6 weeks, something like that. But it seems perfectly suited for this emergency where there's a lot of workers who are suddenly without any income, but expect to be able to go back to work when the emergency ends. It is limited to families and pregnant women, and you have to meet the TANF income and asset limits, which, as Peter said, are very low. But if you get this, then there's no work requirement or child support assignment issue. Next slide. So the way you apply for TANF diversion is you apply on Compass for cash assistance. There's no particular diversion application. And the long-standing rules have been that the County Assistance Office worker is supposed to explore diversion as an alternative to TANF during the interview. But without any guidance from DHS yet, we're not sure whether that's happening. We're urging people to put in the comment box of the application, I am interested in diversion. CLS has a flyer on that we can ask Kelly to send you all. If I'm not sure if I've sent it to Kelly yet. And we are talking with DHS. What we are hoping they will do is issue a memo to the field offices, basically giving a green light, saying that the COVID-19 crisis is an emergency that we expect will last, say, 3 months, and that CAO workers can give out a 3-month grant to people who meet the TANF income and asset limit. And ideally, we'd like them to expand it even more, but we have not. These are ongoing discussions. We'll keep you posted through the plan listserv. Next slide. And then just very briefly, the Liheap program is, helps people pay for heating bills, and there's a season when you can apply for it, and it ends tomorrow, April 10th. So this is the time to get people to submit those Liheap applications today or tomorrow. Next slide. And you can do that on Compass. And just a reminder that Liheap gives cash grants regardless of whether you've got a shutoff notice, but there's an additional crisis grant if people have a shutoff notice or are extremely low on heating oil or propane. And there's this crisis interface repair of heating equipment. And you apply for any of those through the one application that needs to be in tomorrow. Next slide. Switching gears to what we know about what's happening with hearings and appeals. Part of the answer is we don't know a whole lot. DHS told us that all appeal deadlines are going to be extended for 60 days, but so far, the only written policy we've seen on this is for medical assistance, which says that people will have 90 days to appeal. And if they appeal after the normal 15-day period for getting aid paid pending, they can still get aid paid pending if they ask for it. So if you file appeals after that, be sure to specifically say, my client wants continuing benefits while waiting for a hearing. The Bureau of Hearings and Appeals was just closed for 2 weeks and basically shut down, and we got back into the office last week. And the Pennsylvania Health Law Project and CLS had a phone call with them last week. And at that point, they were catching up and developing a plan for how they are going to be handling hearings going forward. One thing they told us is that expedited Medicaid appeals are being handled by Federal Hearings and Appeals. This is this privatized entity that handles certain appeals. And they had been handling them even during those 2 weeks when regular BHA was closed. So FHA is handling expedited Medicaid appeals except for the ones for community health choices. Next slide. All hearings are going to be by phone, and BHA, because of social distancing mandates, is having staggered shifts. So for 2 weeks, half of them will be in the office, and well, the other half are at home, and then they're going to switch. Of course, just like with the CAOs, it isn't quite half because some people are sick or just can't do this. So the Health Law Project and CLS submitted a bunch of requests to BHA last week, asking them to triage the appeal requests, prioritizing people who are not getting benefits, recognizing that with short staff, the hearings are going to be slower, and the ones that are most important are the ones where people are not getting benefits. We also asked them that they communicate with us by email, given that none of us are getting mail in a steady way, or mail is going to closed offices, and we have not heard back from them yet. And then just a reminder that people are entitled to interim assistance if their hearings have not been decided within 60 days for SNAP or 90 days for medical assistance and TANF and Liheap. So people should be tracking the date of when they submitted the appeal and when that interim assistance should be started, and should on day 91 be requesting interim assistance. Next slide. Peter.
Okay, we're going to revisit the topic of TANF work requirements, go into a little more detail about this. Not surprisingly, many Parents who are on TANF are facing numerous barriers to participation in their employment and training activities related to the COVID-19 crisis. And those include things like the fact that the Earn, Work Ready, and Keys physical locations are all closed, schools are closed, and daycares are closed. The good news here is that DHS has said publicly in a general sort of way that no TANF participant will be sanctioned for failure to meet the work requirements. However, not until very recently did they inform TANF clients or their employment and training providers about this. And so for a few weeks there, people have been understandably very anxious about whether they're going to be sanctioned or not, or in the case of the Keys and Earn programs, whether they were going to have to sanction people. I think we might be missing a slide here. What would have been ideal is if DHS had just granted blanket good cause, because there's virtually no TANF parent subject to the work requirements who is really going to be able to meet them, given all of the things related to COVID-19 that are going on. What they're going to do instead is basically individual good cause determinations. So last week, on April 1st, DHS sent a second round of guidance to the Earn, Work Ready, and Keys programs with instructions to inform TANF participation that good cause will be granted if they can't participate or fully participate in E&T activities. And so in that communication, in that guidance, they specified an expanded list of COVID-related good cause circumstances. And those include the closing of the physical locations of Earn, Work Ready, and Keys programs, closing of schools or daycares, leaving parents having to care for their children at home. DHS is really encouraging the employment and training providers to find remote activities for people to do. But the guidance issued last week advises them that they should explore with clients whether they have the technical capability to actually do remote activities like internet service at their home, a laptop, or a tablet. And of course, needing to care for yourself or a family member who might be sick or have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus is an additional good cause factor. So as I said, E&T providers have been asked to reach out to participants to explore possibilities for remote work. This would be particularly important, and we think actually a lot of the clients out there are motivated to do this. Most of the community colleges in their Keys programs most community colleges are offering distance learning options for people to be able to finish their coursework. Of course, those opportunities are available to TANF Keys participants and SNAP-only Keys participants, and that would be great if they can do it if they have internet and a computer. The E&T providers have been instructed to try to determine whether clients really can do these remote activities, to grant good cause if they can't, or for any of the other reasons that we just talked about. So the bottom line here is that no TANF family is to be sanctioned for failure to comply with TANF work requirements. DHS has told us that they will likely also announce that no one is to be terminated from their employment and training program, even if they can't participate. Things that we can do would be to be on the lookout for TANF clients who are being threatened with sanctions or termination from their program. If you encounter any such cases, you should contact CJP or CLS. And if possible, it would be a good idea to get word out to agencies that serve TANF families like community action programs and Head Start programs, and let them know that that no one is to be sanctioned or terminated from their employment training program if they can't meet TANF work requirements. Louise, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think probably everybody on this call knew that we were fearing that starting April 1st, a new 3-month time limit for SNAP able-bodied adults without dependents would go into effect across almost all of Pennsylvania, including areas like Philadelphia that had never experienced this time limit. And that's not going to be happening on April 1st. A little bit of good news here. On March 13th, the federal court in DC issued a nationwide injunction of the federal rule that would have changed things to extend that time limit to areas previously subject to geographic waivers, including Philadelphia. And because of that injunction, the new rule can't go into effect while the litigation is pending, unless the preliminary injunction is appealed, which we don't know yet. Next slide. But also, Congress has lifted the ABAWD rule nationwide during the coronavirus emergency. So what that means is in the parts of Pennsylvania that have not had a waiver and this 3-month time limit has been in effect, specifically Bucks, Center, Chester, and Lancaster counties, the ABAWD rule does not apply now. So anybody who had gotten 3 months of SNAP in those counties and had then lost their SNAP should reapply. There's no time limit on them anymore. I also think if any of those people, ABAWDs in those 4 counties, are living with other folks in a household that is getting SNAP, so say a 48-year-old ABAWD is living with a 50-year-old spouse and the 50-year-old spouse is getting SNAP, I think that DHS should find those people and automatically add those people to the household SNAP grant. DHS so far has said they're not doing it. Partly I get it that they're very busy and this is relatively low priority because they're not that many, but those people I think are entitled to SNAP as of April 1st. And if any of you are working in Bucks, Center, Chester, or Lancaster County, please be on the lookout for ABAWDs, make sure they apply for SNAP, and let me know if DHS is automatically putting them back on or not. I'd really love to know about the experience in those counties. Next slide. And now we're moving on to Maria.
Thank you. So we can go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about Wic, which is a program that some of us might not work with very much because it's administered by, oops. Peter will find
Maria,
those slides.
Hold on a second. I'm having a little trouble here. My finding.
No worries, you'll find it. So a lot of us might not work that much with Wic because it's administered by the Department of Health as opposed to DHS, but it's a pretty significant nutrition benefit, and we want to make sure that people can get this information to their clients, both about sort of how to apply for Wic and who might be eligible, and also how Wic is working right now during the coronavirus. Can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, so I already said this, we're going to talk about how to apply, how Wic sort of generally works, and how Wic is working now. Next slide. So Wic is formally called the Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children. It sees itself as a nutrition program and a public health program. A lot of Wic staff and administrators don't like to think of themselves as a public benefit program, but the fact is that it's a really important benefit for our clients. Like SNAP, it's administered by USDA. Unlike SNAP and MA and TANF, it's completely federally funded, so the state's administrative costs of running Wic, as well as the Wic nutrition benefits themselves, are all federally funded. So the benefit to Pennsylvania is really not putting a lot of resources into running Wic. the money is coming from the federal government. And as you may know, WIC doesn't provide sort of open-ended grocery funds like SNAP does. WIC provides vouchers for specific grocery items. So WIC shoppers can only choose certain items at the stores, not all items. And the items are selected to be what the program considers the most nutritious foods. Next slide. Okay, so this is what people can buy with their WIC. It benefits amount to about $60 per person in the household per month. And so produce, fruits and vegetables, dairy products, eggs, fish, whole grains, and beans, peanut butter too. For children under the age of 1, baby formula is included and baby food is included at the appropriate developmental stages. In addition to the groceries, WIC prides itself on providing nutrition education and health screenings. Again, it really sees itself as a health program. And part of the reason that WIC employs so many nutritionists is that families' food packages are actually tailored to what WIC assesses as their nutritional needs. For instance, if someone needs a special diet or if they're anemic or if they have other health needs, the food package will be tailored for their needs. WIC also provides breastfeeding support, which is not insignificant. WIC in Pennsylvania has actually been quite successful at increasing breastfeeding rates among WIC families. Next slide. So the Wic Food List is available online if anyone's curious what foods can be purchased with WIC benefits. Just in 2019, Pennsylvania completed transitioning to EBT cards for WIC. You might remember that our clients used to have paper vouchers that they had to bring to the grocery store, but now thankfully people can buy their groceries on EBT cards. It's not the same as the access card, it's a separate card, and it doesn't work in the same way either, but it's electronic. One advantage, a couple advantages of the EBT cards are that participants can now buy their groceries in as many different shopping trips a month as they want, as opposed to going once and having to use, there were vouchers that were linked to one shopping trip, so you had to buy all of your milk, for instance, for the month. So now people can buy their groceries in a much more flexible way. And there is also an app that people can use in the store to scan items for WIC eligibility. And that, in theory, would make it more convenient to figure out if a food is WIC eligible when one is in the grocery store. Next slide. So WIC provides vouchers for people who are pregnant, people who recently gave birth, are breastfeeding, and children up to the age of 5. 5 is a hard cutoff with WIC. And once children reach the age of 5, they can no longer receive WIC. And the theory is that then they presumably enroll in school and begin receiving nutrition support in school. There is, of course, a gap there because depending on when the child's birthday is, or maybe many months before they enroll in kindergarten, there have been talk of efforts to meet that gap, but at this point, WIC only goes till age 5. You don't have to be the parent or the mother of the child to apply for WIC for the child. Basically anyone who is caring for the child, other relatives and non-related guardians may apply for WIC for children in their care. If you're not a mother who gave birth or who was pregnant, you can't get WIC for yourself, but the children can get WIC pretty much no matter who is taking care of them, but they can only be in one WIC household. So parents who share custody or who have to temporarily leave children with someone else, the child may only be in one WIC household. Really, really important for our clients, WIC does not ask about immigration status at all. It's not part of WIC application. It's not relevant to WIC eligibility, and WIC has never been part of public charge and will not be part of public charge no matter, well, at least the current worst version of public charge still does not include WIC. So people can participate in WIC and it will not have any negative implication on their immigration status. So So it's really important for clients who may not be eligible for SNAP because of immigration status to understand that they can be eligible for WIC. Next slide. Kelly, can we have the next slide, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. For some reason, it does not want to move from me right now.
Okay, I think the next slide is how to, oh no, it's the income limits, perfect. Okay, so WIC goes to up to 185% of poverty, so that's a pretty high income limit for our programs. And the pregnancy counts as 2 household members. It counts as the carrying person and the fetus. And one can enroll in WIC as soon as one becomes pregnant and be sort of a household of 2. Also, households receiving MA, SNAP, or TANF are automatically income eligible for WIC. And there are actually some relatively new efforts between DHS and health to share that data so that SNAP families who might have children under 5 would be notified that they're eligible for WIC. That is really, like, that data sharing is in its infancy, and it, we're hoping to, there's a group of advocates hoping to make that more effective. But at any rate, your MA, SNAP, and TANF clients are WIC eligible, and others at a higher income level are still income eligible as long as they're below 185% of poverty. Next slide.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble advancing the slide for some reason. It was fine, and now it's... I'm trying.
I
Sorry.
understand. Okay, so
It's not advancing. Okay, there we go.
so there are 2 ways. Oh, no, there aren't. Okay. The other eligibility requirements for WIC are that you have to live in Pennsylvania, and WIC has to do a nutritional interview and certify nutritional risk. There's a lot of conditions that satisfy nutritional risk. The truth is everyone has a nutritional risk. Probably you and I do too. And WIC staff have told me they don't turn away anyone for lack of nutritional risk. This is all about, this interview is all about figuring out the food package for a family. It's not about turning someone away. So if someone doesn't have any of the conditions that are listed, they do a dietary survey and see if they've eaten, for instance, enough iron and enough vegetables in the past 3 days. And if they haven't, then they consider that a nutritional risk. So no one will be turned away for lack of nutritional risk. Next slide, maybe. Thanks. Great. So how do you apply for WIC? Either there's an online pre-application, the website is right there, or there's a phone number to call. And then generally the next step is an in-person appointment. Those in-person appointments have now all been switched to telephone, but your client has to either do the online or the statewide phone number first to start the application process. And then they will be transferred essentially to doing a telephone interview with their local WIC agency. There are 23 WIC agencies across the state. So some of them are 1 county, like Philadelphia is 1 county, Allegheny County is 1, but then some of them are multi-county. So, but people don't have to figure out what is their agency when they're, after they do their pre-application online or by phone, they will be referred to their agency. Next slide. I don't want to waste too much time on this because appeals are pretty rare in WIC and we're very low on time. If someone is denied WIC or cut off of WIC, contact CLS because appeals are pretty unusual, but there are fair hearing rights, and we would be happy to advise on that. Next slide. Okay, so right now, WIC is operating differently. I mentioned before that WIC has a really sort of like face-to-face health screenings model where they have clients come in basically every 3 months in person. That can't be happening right now. So there are basically 2 models of what's happening around the state. And I'll tell you what's happening in Philadelphia, where I am, and also some of what's happening in other counties. In Philadelphia, all of the WIC offices are closed to the public at this point. All appointments are happening by telephone, and e-WIC cards so the new eWIC cards that rolled out last year are not remotely loadable, so people can't have their benefits opened or reloaded remotely. So Philadelphia, WIC, and many other places are mailing like a completely new card to people every 3 months so they can get 3 months of benefits on their card. And then if we're still shut down at that point, then they can do that again in 3 months from now. There's at least, so that model is also happening in Delaware County. I looked at Maternal Family Health Services, which runs WIC for 11 counties. It includes Berks and Lehigh and Lackawanna County, Luzerne County, Montgomery County. So that's the biggest WIC program in the state. They are actually they're doing telephone appointments, of course. Everywhere is doing telephone appointments, but they are reloading cards on site, and clients need to go to the WIC office and have a sort of handoff of the card, get it reloaded, and bring it home. If they are unable to leave the house, they can have a proxy do that for them. And children, of course, aren't required to go to the card reloading. So basically, those are the two models that are happening. And I recommend that people check their own WIC agency's social media page. The WIC agencies that I've looked at have not been updating their websites, but they're definitely communicating by Twitter or Facebook to let people know sort of the status. And the statuses, of course, have been changing. So you may need to check for your clients whether their agency is doing card reloading at offices or mailing cards like Philadelphia is. But at any rate, WIC is open. We're encouraging people to apply. New applications may be processed a little bit more slowly than they were before the crisis because, of course, workers are, dealing with different situations as all workers are. But applications are being processed, and we hope that people who really need groceries can use this as extra support. Unfortunately, WIC is still not available for like grocery delivery services like SNAP. And who knows, maybe this crisis will encourage that process to go much more quickly at the federal level.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome. I see there's one question of whether you can't do curbside pickup or online ordering. I think you can actually do online ordering and pick it up in store. I have heard that is possible. I have not tried it.
Okay, thank you. Peter, are we going back to your screen and your PowerPoint?
I believe so.
Okay.
Do I go to share screen here?
Uh-huh, yes.
Okay, let's see here.
Do we need to do another poll before some people might need to get off at 10?
Yes. For attorneys requesting CLE credit for your participation in this webinar today, you should have a poll box on your screen. Please respond to the question, yes or no.
I'm not seeing that
Is anybody
poll box.
seeing it?
No.
Let me try to relaunch it. I'm not sure why video screens are popping up for people, and anybody seeing it?
Nope.
Okay. Peter, are you able to get your screen shared?
Is it not showing?
No, it isn't. We're just getting, I just have boxes of people's videos that we're not showing.
Okay.
If you hit share screen button and then choose screen.
Yeah, I can't, I have this up on my screen and I can't. Okay, hold on a second.
Okay.
Now, can you see the PowerPoint now?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
All right, so.
Let me see if I can no, I was gonna see if I could share your screen, but let me try the poll box again. I'm not sure what we have going on right now, except that with the stay at home and the COVID, there's so many more people using Zoom,
Yay.
although I
There's
haven't had a
the
problem
poll
yet.
box.
Oh, great.
What's showing on my screen, Kelly, is kind of the master list that you're seeing. I don't have an option to click yes or no.
Okay. Well, for presenters, I know that you participated, so you're
Okay.
good, but
Okay.
you should be able to click share screen and then choose your screen. And I'm not sure why we're not getting your PowerPoint up.
Let's see.
We'll be sending the PowerPoint out to everyone by email, just so you know, after the webinar. But if we're not able to get it up right now, are you able to finish the presentation from memory, perhaps?
Probably.
And I apologize for this.
Let's see. Are you seeing my computer screen?
I'm seeing Susan Strong's computer screen, but she should not be sharing. It's supposed to only let one person at a time. So
Maybe that was an email that Peter got from Susan. Maybe that was Peter's. Peter, when you were sharing, was the PowerPoint up?
Actually, I can share the PowerPoint from my screen and just advance to the slide that we were on.
Okay.
Will that help?
I'm probably going to have to do that because I can't figure out how to get back to.
Yeah, I apologize. I've never had this happen before, so pretty strange. Let me get us in. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? Or the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
Hold on. Yeah, I think I do. In any event, I can go to those.
Just let me know where we're at.
I know where we're at, so let me just scroll down. Oh, brother. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not seeing my screen, right?
Keep going, Kelly.
No, I think I'm sharing it now, the PowerPoint. Just let me know when to stop.
Next one. There we are.
Sorry about this, everybody.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to talk about the federal coronavirus stimulus payments. This comes out of the CARES Act that was passed by Congress and signed into law late in March. The rules for these payments are kind of based on tax filing status, so it's a little reminiscent of the MAGI rules for medical assistance that we all like so much. Kelly, we're on the slide now that says who gets the stimulus payments and how much are they? So eligible adults will receive a one-time payment of $1,200 and an additional $500 for each child in their household under 17 who's claimed as a dependent. It took me a little while to kind of figure out how this works, so I'm going to go through this a little bit slowly. If you are a single taxpayer without children or married without children and filing separately, and your income is $75,000 or less, you'll get the $1,200. If it's two filing separately, then each would get the $1,200. Married couples filing jointly with earnings $150,000 or less will get $2,400 plus $500 for each child. Taxpayers who are filing as head of household, so I think this would be like single parents, and earning $112,500 or less will get $1,200 plus $500 for each child. The next slide, Kelly. These benefits phase out at higher income levels. The benefits are based on your 2019 tax return if you filed one, or 2018 tax return if you haven't filed your 2019 return. And keep in mind that the filing deadlines for 2019 taxes were extended. Next slide. So what do you have to do to get a stimulus payment? This is not something that you apply for. If you filed a tax return in 2018 or 2019, you'll get your payment automatically. People who receive Social Security do not have to file a tax return. At first, they did, and then that was changed. So now they don't have to file a tax return. They should get their stimulus check automatically. One of the unfortunate things about this whole scheme is that people who get SSI have to file a tax return, unlike people who get, for example, Social Security disability insurance or Social Security retirement benefits. SSI folks do have to file a tax return. There is advocacy being done on this. It's not really clear why SSI folks would be treated differently, but so far they are. There is a website here where non-filers can get information on how to file their 2019 tax return. Let's go on to the next slide, Kelly. How do people receive their payments? Payments will be made by direct deposit if the account is provided on your tax return. So for example, if people have gotten their tax refunds in the past by direct deposit, then that's the way they'll get their stimulus check. If that information isn't currently with the IRS, supposedly IRS is gonna establish a web-based portal that will let people add that information. If you don't have direct deposit information on hand with the IRS, or if they don't have it on hand for you, then checks will be mailed. It looks like that could take weeks or maybe even months longer than payment by direct deposit. Of course, people are going to be asking, well, if I get this $1,200 or $1,200 plus with the supplement for kids, how's that going to affect any benefits that I'm receiving? Importantly, the CARES Act provides that stimulus payments are not counted as income for public benefit programs. That would include medical assistance, SNAP, and TANF. As I understand it, the payments won't count as income, and people will have 12 months to spend it down. So it effectively is treated as a resource, but with quite a long period of time to spend it and get under the resource limit. For public charge purposes, stimulus payments are what would not be considered in a public charge determination. So for anyone who is applying for adjustment of status, green card, legal permanent residency. And I think that's it for stimulus payments.
Okay, I see we have a number of questions, so I need to stop sharing my screen to get back to be able to read them to you. And again, we apologize for these technical snafus. Okay. Let me see, we have lots of comments. Eileen says, on Google, there are already stimulus calculators to help compute. What about those getting both SSI and SSD?
I don't know for sure, but I would expect that they'll get them automatically. In other words,
Okay.
the same as people who are SSDI not concurrent. I don't know that for sure, but that seems logical.
That's my understanding, Peter.
Somebody wrote, it is not 100% clear what SSI recipients, TANF recipients, and Veterans Benefits recipients will have to do to get the check. It may be that they will have to file a $1 return, but we won't know for sure until the IRS releases guidance on this, hopefully soon.
That's Omid from Philadelphia Legal Assistance, who works in their tax clinic, I think. So I would trust whatever Omid says.
And he says, hopefully this will be at irs.gov/coronavirus. We have a question from Pam. So are SSI recipients eligible for the stimulus? I think you answered that.
Mm-hmm. They are, but they won't get it in the way that other Social Security recipients do.
I don't see any other new questions besides that. So thank you very much, Maria, Louise, and Peter. Again, we apologize for the technical glitches, but hopefully everyone got some good new information that'll be helpful to them. And we will get the PowerPoint information emailed out to you shortly. We're also recording this webinar, so give us a day or two, and then it will be on the Plan Brief and Information Bank, on the Plan website, or on the Plan YouTube channel.
Kelly, thanks for putting this all together and all the other webinars you're doing.
Yes, thank you, Kelly.
Happy to do it. Yep. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe and be well.